Thank you. I'd like you to take a moment and just think about your family. Chances are it's a lot like mine. It's made up of several generations, from your mom and your grandma, all the way down to the littlest members, the children and the babies. These folks, even though you're not with them all the time, every time you reunite, you share in the common joy and history of your bonds. As humans who have a really strong affinity to families, it's no wonder that we feel that same affinity for other living things that also form these remarkably complex relationships with their relatives. In fact, the waters of Puget Sound are home to some of our most celebrated families, our orcapods. These spectacular creatures live in multi-generational families, and they spend their entire lifetimes together. Every calf that's born is newsworthy to us and cause for really great celebration within our community. And in Africa and Asia, herds of elephants roam and reunite as they have for tens of thousands of years. These herds look out for one another. They learn from their elders, and they cherish their smallest family members. So it's really no wonder, is it, that we feel such a strong connection to these animals, because they're really not that different from us, are they? And because we feel this strong sense of connection, it also leads us to feel fiercely protective of them, right? Actually, I've found that the answer to that question is a lot less certain than I once thought. Elephants and orcas have been in the news a lot lately. Recently, Ringling Brothers announced plans to phase elephants out of its circuses. And zoos that care for elephants have come under increasing scrutiny. And the blackfish phenomenon has stirred people into a worldwide frenzy, calling for the end of orcas and other cetaceans in captivity. And it's really easy to understand why people feel so passionate about these issues, because we readily identify with these animals who have families that are so like ours. But I think that something has gotten lost in this conversation. We may have freed Willie and liberated elephants from circuses, but lacking seems to be our moral concern. It seems to be shockingly absent in what's happening to orcas and elephants out in the wild. Recently, Point Defiance Zoo Aquarium and its partners authored some legislation to ban the sale of elephant ivory in the US. That's right, did you know it is still legal, even though it's illegal to import ivory into the United States, it's still legal to buy it in all but 2 states. So you'd expect this bill would be a slam dunk, right? Actually, it wasn't. This bill died in committee, largely due to opposition from the NRA. That's right, they opposed the restrictions this bill would place on the sale of pistols and knives that were decorated with ivory. With their support of the legal ivory trade, they are complicit in the black market for ivory, a market that is fueled by the ongoing slaughter of wild elephants, 96 of them every single day. This slaughter is executed by paramilitary bands of poachers and terrorists who ridiculously outgun the rangers that are trying so hard to protect these amazing animals. It is mystifying why there is more moral outrage for a handful of elephants in circuses than there is for the 35,000 elephants that are killed every year for their teeth. Are we really going to let the NRA dictate what wildlife survives into the next century? And why are people so much more vocal in protesting an orca held in an aquarium than they are in demanding action to protect our iconic pods here in Puget Sound? Pods that are struggling to survive because of the incredible impacts they face from polluted runoff and the decimation of wetlands that serve as nurseries to the salmon upon which they depend. As conservationists, we dedicate our lives to caring for animals. And believe me, I care deeply for the individual welfare of every living thing. But we are facing a conservation crisis, and it's essential that we move beyond action and concern for one animal to concern and action for an entire species. Conservationists look for interventions to try to change people's behavior if it's harmful to wildlife. And traditionally, those interventions have consisted mostly of rewarding desired behaviors and penalizing those that are harmful, like through fines or poaching. But this is a pretty difficult system to sustain. And social psychologists actually tell us a much better way of influencing our behavior is to look to those intrinsic motivations instead. It's really our values, our beliefs, and our feelings of connection that are most instrumental in driving our actions. And it can be really interesting to see what connects us. Observing recent events in the sports world, I gotta say, I find the 12-man fan frenzy to be a pretty interesting social phenomenon. I propose that we create a collective social value on protecting our natural world, just as much as we do on valuing the world of highly paid professional athletes and their billionaire bosses. Our community's Seahawk spirit shows us we can care collectively. So let's harness that ability and create an identity relating to conservation, a conservation conscience, and put that identity to work. We already know that people overwhelmingly hold positive views of nature. And in fact, if people are asked about their favorite places, they'll usually describe some sort of natural setting. And just like being a 12th man can foster feelings of connections with our community, being in nature can foster feelings of connection to something so much larger than ourselves, a kinship with all living things. So let's build a community conservation conscience by sharing experiences that will help us have positive feelings towards nature and build hope. So I call on you, on all of us, to contribute to a future where we can transcend being content with easy victories that benefit individual animals, and instead give moral consideration to the right of entire species to live in peace, where it's not enough to invest our energy solely into making life better for one animal, but better for all, where conservation is a fundamental value and belief that connects our community, where the elimination of poaching and the preservation of elephants is valued as much as a Super Bowl victory. So I call on you to take your concern and your passion for elephants and orcas and translate it into action. Action that will give us reason to be optimistic for the future of all of our world's wildlife. Thank you.